fall asleep in the bathtub.
All happy families are alike, and all unhappy families are unhappy in their own way. That's Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, the first line of it. That's all I know. Big smart. All right, let's start it.
Okay.
Oh, and you're promoting a book, maybe? Yes.
I don't know. I usually bring to J-Lo.
Aw.
You're J-Lo.
Are you recording this?
Get it, J-Lo?
Awesome. Welcome back to the Lodgical Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Lodge. Today I have a very special guest and a good friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a while, and he's taken time out of his busy schedule to join me here in the studio. I've got Mr. Dyer. Welcome, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, we were just looking through old pictures, and I found old pictures of me and you and Paul and people partying from probably 2005.
Playing Risk.
Yes, I found the Risk photos where we were at Huddle House.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I look back on that time 20 years ago, and we would sit for hours and debate.
Well, yeah.
And I love that. Mm-hmm. And it was formidable years in my life to disagree, to get into contentious conversations, to learn how to do that. Like, you learn how to do that by doing that. Mm-hmm. I don't ever remember anyone getting mad, storming out.
No, we always had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. That was right. That was right. It was the opposite of that. It was challenge me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's work this out. Or I think I know. Let's test against the hypothesis.
Right.
Right. And knowledge should and does work this way.
Right.
But most of our society doesn't believe this.
No. It's unfortunate. I mean, education has been engineered to dumb people down and to basically make everybody have emotional reactions to things. Emotivism. Right.
Emotive responses.
Yes. And based on your passions, not on critical thinking. And nowadays, I've learned that the best way to win a debate is just use these boomer glasses, and then I pull them down like this, and I scowl at you with an air of condescension, and I win every debate.
Hey, I'm not trying to interrupt you right now.
I win every debate.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. Kevin, can we take a break? This show is brought to you. We've got a sponsor. Do you mind if I do a sponsorship real quick? Kevin, can you put up our sponsorship on the screen so Jay can see it, please? I don't know if you're able to do that or not. Our sponsor of the show. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry.
It looks vaguely familiar.
Yeah. Are you thirsty?
Like maybe an uncle or something.
By the way, I have my own product line I'm launching, and I'm glad you're here. I brought it for you. It's called Boomer Fuel.
These will help with the boomer glasses. So thank you for the boomer.
Yes. So if you drink that, you will go from 0 to 100 at the slightest annoyance.
So nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So like I'm talking Jason Aldean, Bud Light, just anything that is insignificant, inconsequential, you're going to get very upset about. Okay. You're going to say, this is the hill I'm going to die on, even though I know nothing about it. That's what that does for you.
You should have come with a Trump.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you either love Trump, everything he does,
or you hate him,
or you hate everything he does. That's part of the drink. It's all in there. It's got it on the label.
It should have like a line of the tribe of Judah and Trump and like the Israeli flag or something. Would
I
be really
like
cool.
the Christian nationalist flag because that is eerie to me. I see that, and I was going through Arkansas and I saw six flags in a row, not like the Six Flags, but one was a POW, one was a gay pride, one was the Christian nationalist flag.
Wow.
Yeah, and one was the Stars and Bars. And I was like, man, I just want to pull over and meet this person.
That is
talk to him.
That is an incoherent worldview. Right?
I don't know. I want to feel like they're like, screw like the ethnics or whatever. I don't know. I just felt like I'd like to meet this person. Like
we were talking about debates, and one thing I remember from a long time ago that Bahnsen said, and I think it ultimately comes from Aristotle, is the best way to go about not just debates, but discussions with people, or it applies to business, it applies to anything in life, is that if you can understand your opponent's position to their satisfaction, even without taking that position.
Right.
Aristotle said that's the mark of an intelligent man.
Yes.
And, to go back to what we were talking about a minute ago, like today's society doesn't think that way. Like we've been engineered away from that.
So you have devoted the last 20 years plus of your life to doing the exact thing, what you just said. You have dedicated your life to studying the opposition, so to speak.
Yeah. It's a
So
good way to put it.
you have entrenched yourself with the writings of global elites,
Right.
what they have, Rockefeller to whoever,
Brzezinski, yeah, all of them.
and you have read from their viewpoint. So you're not straw manning their arguments
Yeah.
whatsoever. You're saying, no, this is what these people have said. This is what they've written. And because a lot of my viewers, I know a lot of your viewers are aware of this, but this is what you have done. You've dedicated your life to researching and reading this, and then essentially, I don't want to belittle this, but cliff note it down for
Yeah.
people like me so I can understand what these people are talking about. Because these are complex models and complex systems that take decades or a century plus to implement in several generations, right? To
Yeah,
fully.
well said. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I realized when I was doing undergrad back in the 2000s that even though I was starting to dabble in some of the conspiracy topics, a lot of people viewed these as kind of fringe and silly. And that's understandable given that there's a lot of disinformation, misinformation. There's a lot of bogus conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
right?
Bigfoot or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that. But then I realized, no, actually, from watching a lot of Alex Jones over the years, like he would cite the books. And that just kind of gave me the idea, why don't I just read through those texts? Because I myself was skeptical of some of the things that he would say over the years.
Yeah.
And so
his presentation and all that.
Yeah, he's a character. Right?
Yeah. He is a cartoon
wild
character.
guy.
He's a wild
Unbelievable. So I was like, well, I like to read.
Yeah.
I was raised by an editor, librarian mom. So
Yep.
why not just start working through these texts to see what's legit and what's baloney?
Yeah.
And most of everything that he talked about over the years is legit. And like you said, that gave me the idea to start what I call the Global Elite Book Series, where I go through Tragedy and Hope, Brzezinski, Bertrand Russell, Jacques Attali, who's the Kissinger of France, Kissinger's books.
Henry Kissinger.
We go to the books of Henry Kissinger, and we start with
Upright Citizens Brigade has the best sketch. It's on season 1 of them. I don't know if you're familiar.
I am familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where they have like the earpiece in Kissinger's ear. Yeah. Yeah. And he's at the World Economic Forum or some, I don't know where he's at talking. And yeah.
Well, speaking of Klaus's books, I just bought
Klaus Schwab, for those of you that don't know, one of the global elites, and it's not just George Soros if you're wearing a red hat, and it's not just Donald Trump if your hair's purple. One of the global elites is this Bond villain. I think he's from Spectre or one of those, or Skyfall. I don't know which Bond villain he is, but he wears very Bond-esque villain clothes, talks with a Bond villain accent, and has these insane premises from which he wants to shape and form the world, which would be okay if he wasn't a rich, powerful elitist.
Yeah, well, he's in with the clique of all these other people we've been talking about. In fact, his position at Davos, the World Economic Forum, was created by Kissinger. This was a CIA Harvard project many years ago, and they chose Klaus to be in that role, just like Kissinger and David Rockefeller chose Brzezinski to be in the Trilateral Commission role.
Right.
So they'll kind of create these committees and these things and say, hey, put that dude in there. He's a good fit for
Which
this.
those committees in and of themselves kind of transcend the government structure,
Absolutely.
so to speak. So it almost has this. I think Bill Clinton once said, we're globalists whether we want to be or not.
No, he said, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
So that you have these international elite steering committees, very wealthy people. They kind of hand the policies down to the government level,
right?
And so basically say, do this, or we will make sure you're not elected. Or,
right, and that trickles down eventually down to our local level because I mean it goes state, because where this funding is coming from. So it's like you have to play ball, you have to kind of give into these worldviews. And maybe in 1980 this one change didn't make sense, or in 1992 this change didn't make sense, but over time. Just like a geological landscape, if you were to look at it over time, you can see that it is actually transforming and taking shape from all aspects of our society. Our great-grandparents, their worldview, the way they viewed the world, is completely different from 2023 today.
Yeah, that's a slow Fabian model of how to change things
now,
gradually.
what do you mean by Fabian?
Fabian socialism. The Fabian elites, it's it's kind of a group coming out of England,
Okay.
and they were the first Marxists of the late 1890s and early 1900s to say that instead of radical traditional Marxism of the proletariat, the working class rising up and taking the means of production, we need to ally with big capital. So
Right.
they're called reformed Marxists. And this is people like George Bernard Shaw, Beatrice and Sidney Webb, and they aligned themselves and were actually very influential with people like David Rockefeller. They were influential with a lot of the British Royal Society elites. And so this is a reformed Marxism that says, let's just use the slow model of the long march through the institutions to bring in not necessarily some kind of rigid Marxism or Leninism, but something that's allied with big capital that allows capitalism on a monopoly scale to erect the structures, and then we bring the socialism in, a light socialism. So it's
So when you say light,
it's a third wave.
yeah. So it's almost like they're I see. So they're almost poaching the idea from our brain, in that sense of it's a slow burn. They're
Right.
introducing it over a gradual, yeah. So
And all of the institutions that you've probably heard of, like the IMF, World Bank, these are all Fabian institutions. They're created by people like John Maynard Keynes, famous Fabian socialist.
Keynesian economics and all that,
exactly.
yeah.
So that's Fabian based. Rockefeller studied under both von Hayek and Harold Lasky. Lasky was a famous Harvard.
And the World Bank was the Rothschilds, right? Or I mean,
Ultimately,
ultimately,
well, they're part of this clique.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you've got Lord Milner, Lord Curtis, Lord Rothschild. They're all part of what's called the Milner Circle, and that's the Fabian Socialists.
Gotcha.
And their idea is, look, Marxism didn't achieve what it said it would do in that generation, which was that all the workers would rise up
Right.
and overthrow.
Right.
Bloody revolution didn't happen.
Right.
So Marxism, they still want it. So how are we going to alter it? Let's do this model. And this model is interesting because they started focusing on things like culture war.
Yeah.
So actually, Beatrice and Sidney Webb were already doing wild ORGY type stuff and public art displays that were super degenerate way before today's modern abstract art or the 1960s culture. Like they were doing this in the 1890s in England.
So like the 1960s Cultural Revolution. So we have a guy here on the court square that holds a sign up, and he is this guy who's been doing it for 20 something years. I've been doing a documentary on him. And one of the interesting things is he was actually in Hyde-Ashbury in 1967.
Oh yeah,
went to the University or Michigan State or University of Michigan under Jolly Rogers. Under
really?
the site,
Dr. Jolly West. I mean,
or Jolly West.
yeah.
Sorry, not Rogers.
Jolly
Yeah, Jolly Roger. Yeah, the pirate. Jolly West, and went and was at Hyde-Ashbury in '67. Talks about ad nauseum in some of his writings in the past decades about being around these houses, these hippie houses where they were given this LSD. And I did this deep dive on that whole experiment and didn't realize that the freaking U.S. government had bought up the world's supply, the entire world's supply of LSD from Sandoza Labs, from Albert Hoffman had synthesized it there. Gets it all to the CIA. The CIA then takes it to like 5 or 6 people, not a whole lot of people, and they're like, "Hey, by the way, we have and this is my theory now. We have the largest voting bloc in American history that's about to vote, right? And their leader just got his head blown off, right? And we have this war that is escalating that no one wants to be in. We're whatever advisors or whatever they So there's all this the rose-colored lenses, I guess, were fading after World War II, and these people were ready to vote out this power structure, but they didn't, and they never went back to the polls. And a lot of that is, I believe, because hundreds of millions of people were dosed by the LSD or by the CIA with LSD. And so, they tuned in, tuned out or whatever, but they never went. What I'm getting at is I believe this was a pivotal time in American history where the institution of the voting institution, so to speak, it stopped. That's when it stopped. And so our generation, it's like, oh, did you vote? And we're like, oh, for who? For freaking Joe whatever and Donald whoever? Like, gross, man.
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot on CIA foreign operations of how they rig elections.
Like Ukraine
other
in
countries.
2014?
Many of them.
Okay.
I mean, election rigging is like a classic.
Yeah.
You know,
They're
black
really,
op.
really good at it. Yeah.
Right. And so why would it be unthinkable that
Yeah.
it would happen in our country when it goes on all the time, and they've even bragged about it.
Iran, Iraq,
Yeah, all kinds of
Libya. We can just keep going
scams.
down
Yeah.
down the line. And
But-
some of the bigger countries too, not just the third world. Yeah. They've been involved in.
Well, that's the maintenance of an empire, right? So Brzezinski said that he called it the American Empire, and you have to maintain it through these means.
Mhm.
So that's sort of like, just power politics, right? So, and yeah, you're right. I think to talk about the 1960s counterculture stuff as a way, it had multi purposes. One of them was a social engineering technique experiment to see what would happen.
What would happen
With mass dosing.
Yeah.
But I also think that you're right that it kind of it shook the public's confidence in our offices.
Yes.
The presidency, this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right? So, and it had that was part of its purpose, was to do that.
That's right.
I agree.
They
with
were
you.
mad. They were upset. Everyone, their leader, this guy that was basically like, hey, all right, so the previous president's like, hey, this thing's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad. It's super bad, right? He talks about the military industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last speech he gives. And then this new guy comes in and he's like, hey, it's a bad team.
Yeah.
They're all bad teams, but hey, I'm going to destroy the CIA and the FBI, and I'm going to, deinstitutionalize the U.S. government. And then that was not what happened.
One of the reasons Eisenhower said,
Spoiler alert.
right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons Eisenhower said that was because he had found out about Mockingbird, which was the older Cold War program where the CIA recruited about 400 journalists at the top legacy institutions. So Time Magazine, all of these big
Mad
things.
Magazine.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. But they actually gave money to Playboy Magazine and Miss Magazine. So Miss Magazine was the premier feminist magazine
Gotcha.
at the time.
Yeah.
That Gloria Steinem worked for the CIA, and she was getting money from the CIA to promote feminism to men. They promoted at that time Playboy Magazine. So part of the culture war was what the CIA was really focusing on in the Cold War. The idea was we'll combat Sovietism with total liberation in all ways, right? So women liberated from the home, from having children, guys liberated from the responsibilities of raising children, being playboys. That was the 60s model of social engineering. All of that was funded by the Congress for Cultural Freedom. And another adjacent to that is Mockingbird, which is, again, the recruitment of all of these journalists, not just in the U.S. It was all the top media publications in the U.S., but also foreign countries. So they were really able to ensconce their control over media in that way. But when Eisenhower found out about this is part of what prompted that famous speech, was because he had learned about Mockingbird.
Right. Okay. And so this then gets slowly a part of the CIA. I mean, the CIA's ran some crazy. Just look up any of these operations, Northwoods, or any of these insane things that they've done. But so MK Ultra kind of in that same era. I found it interesting how many groups were influenced by lysergic acid. So right now the Jesus Revolution movie just came out.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. And there's a lot of evangelicals that believe this is their spiritual heritage.
Right.
And when you read about Lonnie Frisbee and how he got LSD from the CIA, then went and tripped a lot of acid, read the Bible, baptized people in the San Francisco Bay or in hot tubs or whatever it was, had these big... I can't spell as fast as you are. ORGY. He had these big things, right? I mean, but it took the institution of Methodism, Presbyterianism, Baptist, all these different things. And hey, man, let's break these barriers. And at the time it seemed great, but now you fast forward and Christianity is just this meaningless blob of nonsense that is unidentifiable.
Yeah, a couple of the other Calvary Chapel founder people also had a background in Vietnam, Black Operations, Green Beret, and CIA stuff. I forget which one of the Calvary Chapel dudes, but the Calvary Chapel comes out of all that Jesus People Revolution stuff.
And there's same with there's some Black Panther offshoot groups, and the same with the Hell's Angels, and there's these movements that were getting all this insane LSD,
right?
And then tripping and changing the minds of,
Yeah.
you know.
I think they were experimenting with different ways that you could basically have test tubes,
Right.
right? So petri dish, grow, and,
Right.
and see what happens.
Grateful Dead
Yeah.
is a perfect example.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that
They actually were for the CIA. They were
Yeah.
actually paid. They were actually like the Monkees were a created band. I mean,
Right.
this is what they were created for this scene. And some of the earliest videos you can watch of them, man, they were pretty open about it.
Right.
They're like, "This is cool, man. You know that we're getting paid to do this."
You know about Admiral Morrison, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Same situation. If you see the early pictures of Jim Morrison, he's like this clean cut,
Right.
nerdy,
Right.
waspy dude,
Yeah.
right? And his dad's involved in the Gulf of Tonkin false flag, basically.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that a lot of what we think is the organic counterculture is not.
Yeah.
There are some people that are organically counterculture, but what happens is that a lot of these things, even if they're organic, they can be then steered
AstroTurfed.
into, yeah, like
AstroTurf. Then they changed the
like gangster rap, yeah,
right. Yeah.
gangster rap. I think was basically a CIA thing as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Same with
yeah.
Alpha Gal. Same with
what's that?
Alpha Gal.
Alpha gal.
Yeah, you know Alpha Gal, like the tick-borne disease. That
Oh,
makes you
that. Yeah,
allergic to this.
yeah.
So you were talking about the Rockefellers earlier. So I just think this is hilarious. So side note, and you may already know this. I can't think of the Rockefeller's name that got lost in New Guinea. You know, they had the Rockefeller Foundation.
There's one that got lost. That's right.
Yeah, so they had a foundation in New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, right? And they were studying prions.
Yes, we talked about this.
Yes. You and I did?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
You came over and we talked about it.
Yeah. And they were studying prions, and the boat capsizes.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to swim to shore, and they never see him again, right?
Yeah.
And then Charlton Heston's son is recording a documentary like a decade later.
Jonathan Lodge is made from people.
Yeah. And there's this white guy like out on a canoe with like a fig
they
leaf.
find him and
with like a fig leaf and a big beard, and he's just like getting it, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, maybe he made that choice. Maybe he was like, I need to escape like this legacy institute of demonic nonsense that my family's doing. Because like, it's interesting. We talk about prions, but Kuru, right, is
Macau,
the well, Kuru specifically is the name that the regardless Papua New Guinea, they have like 8,000 different languages, completely unrelated. But so oral traditions, as you know, they are they're stipulated. They're very structured.
Right.
So they had no word for Kuru prior to its introduction. They had no history of Kuru prior to the Rockefeller Foundation coming to Papua New Guinea to study Kuru.
Right.
Which
But this is also, people don't know this, but that's adjacent to the large scale MKUltra projects that were being done in Australia. A lot of people don't know. I read a whole book on this, that MKUltra wasn't just U.S. based.
Right.
You have to.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, but people think of it as the 48 or so 42 universities in the United States that were part of this project, but it's actually was running a lot of programs in Australia.
Right.
One of those was a famous, I forget the guy's name, something like Harry or something like that. But there's a doctor who was he's like the most famous serial killer in Australia, but he was part of MKUltra, where he was doing experiments on getting people to the point of death and then bringing them back and studying their experiences.
Whoa.
But he was doing it to the people in the mental institute.
Yeah.
So you can look up that famous case, but that was studies for MKUltra.
Yeah.
And there's dozens of this throughout Australia, and what you're talking about is it's adjacent to that. They're running all these at the same time.
Yeah. I'm an outdoorsman, and I'm always trapping and hunting and fishing and all that. So these diseases and all this nonsense, these introduced species, a lot of these were purposely introduced. A lot of these diseases were purposely engineered.
The tick-borne thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, multiple tick-borne things. So
I know at Plum Island and that
Skull Island.
Plum Island.
Plum
Island is for Lyme's disease.
Lyme's disease.
But I'm
that's
saying,
right.
I think everybody should.
Skull Island is where King Kong is.
Might also be where Lyme's disease comes from.
Yeah, he comes from.
Do you know that?
Let me check my notes.
No, Lyme's disease is actually is a King Kong STD. It's a King Kong born STD that he gave.
Because the ticks are this big.
He gave it to Naomi Watts. Yeah. So remember that stupid King Kong movie with Naomi? Yeah. Anyway,
and Jack Black. Yeah. Do I remember? Yeah, I watched it last night in preparation for this show.
That's the movie you watched.
Yeah,
it happened to be the
I
Jack
looked
Black.
on the internet and it was like Jay is into movies, so I was like, we gotta watch a movie. So that we watched that. So yeah. No, but so the same
The
with
WEF guy. We were talking about Klaus and Davos.
Yeah.
And they had that Dr. Wu Lee.
Yeah.
We have to engineer to make people allergic to meat, also to make them smarter.
Yeah. So they're I heard they were modifying mosquitoes now too. That was the other thing. It's like they're putting corona or something in mosquitoes. I know they're vaccinating cows now, so
That's supposedly haven't done it yet. They are floating the idea,
yeah, I believe
which
them.
usually means they're probably already doing it.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah. So as a meat eater, I take you eat meat.
Yes.
How do you source it? What do you do?
We have specific people that I've asked locally.
Meat dealers?
Yeah.
like-
under the table meat dealers.
Hey, you get
This dude walks up with a trench coat and he opens it up. He's got like meat hanging from his trench coat.
some porterhouses. Dude, it's crazy because I used to source mine myself and do all of my own. And since CWD has come here, which is another prion disease, manufactured in Colorado, 1973. Check it out. They were studying.
I know you've gone down the rabbit hole in this.
Golly, Bill. It's so frustrating.
Right.
And that will end up in our groundwater. And people don't understand that.
It's crazy.
It is small enough to go through diatomaceous earth and end up in our groundwater. So, and it takes decades, but yep, and it doesn't go away. So you can't burn it, freeze it, melt it, So you, I know you do this for a living. What are some of the cool, I've been following you on, the internet. What are some of the cool podcasts you've been on lately?
Oh, man, things have blown up in the last year.
Yeah.
Well, we did Alex for the. Oh man, I turned that up way too loud. Blasting my ear with myself.
Yeah, you're good.
So I've done Alex Fourth Hour for 2.5 years now, and that really opened a
So what
ton
is
of doors.
that for our listeners that don't
so
know?
Alex Jones, I'm probably sure you have all heard of Alex Jones, right? So the
Sandy Hook guy.
the fourth hour of his show every Friday has been my spot. So usually what he does is 3 hours, and then he gives the fourth hour to another person. So, but we've done a bunch of in-studio interviews. We were just there a couple months ago in Austin. We did like a 3-hour special with Alex. It was crazy. That got a lot of views, a lot of traction. That opened up.
What is that energy like? I mean, what do you?
The energy is always at full blast.
100%.
Never goes down.
It's just always 100.
Even when like the cameras are off, like
It's 100.
We went to eat Chinese and it was on the whole time. Like there was like a beverage, like all the beverages that they have at the Chinese restaurant were all splayed around him. He would just keep ordering more. Give me another one of those. Give me that. Like when he would see somebody else with a drink, like, what is that? Give me that. There was like 20 at the table, right? Remember that? So
you have to go home and just take a nap.
he's like you're like, where does he get all this energy?
Woo! I just want to go back to the hotel and
just chill.
Kick it for a second, dude.
It never stops. But that opened up like other doors. Like we did the Tucker Carlson special. So we did a Tucker special on Eat the Bugs, and that was a lot of fun. We did Tim Cast. That was a lot of fun. That came out a lot of this.
I love Tim Cast. That's a cool show. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah.
We did Dr. Turley. We did Elijah Schaefer's show. I just did Pearl's podcast, Pearly Things. What else have we done in the last? It's been crazy the last year. Who? A lot of Maria Z.
Jamie Kennedy.
Oh, we just did the Jamie Kennedy thing.
saw
So we
that,
went to LA and we did a show with him.
Yeah.
So I've been doing some of my comedy.
Yeah. Air quotes.
And then I performed my music live.
If you ever want to think that your comedy is not funny, grab you a sip of that Boomer Fuel right there.
Okay.
Just take a one sip, and you'll be like, not funny.
Okay. Then
In fact, I'm
into
offended.
will it turn me into Robin Williams? That's like boomer comedy, right?
You will be offended at comedy if you drink that. That's what.
drink
Yeah,
that,
that's what I'm saying.
okay.
Like whatever the joke is, like, not funny. Yeah. That's super cool, man. So you're doing the circuit, and then you're still writing. So you have a book here.
Yeah, last book I did. So this year we did a lot of live events. We'd never done our own live events. We pioneered doing that for our stuff, our material in the last year.
So comedy, geopolitics.
We throw it all into one show.
And then when you say music,
yeah, I have a thing I call cringe core.
I'm cringing right now.
Yeah,
what type of music? I'm familiar with
it's
your
all
music.
styles. So there's like
By all styles, you mean techno?
a little bit of techno, yeah.
By all styles, you mean it's 100%
like
techno?
No, I mean it's like Prince influenced, Depeche Mode influenced.
Do you do the
rap
vocals?
influenced? What?
You do the vocals?
Yeah.
Do you play an instrument?
No, I sing. This is the instrument, buddy.
That's the instrument.
The
I got you.
vocal
You can,
cord
have,
is
you
an
can do
instrument.
both. People do both. I've seen it
I've heard
on TV.
I've heard of this.
Yeah. I've seen it
I
on
think
the
you
TV.
had a band once.
I did
right?
have a band
it
once.
Was,
yeah. It was all mimed.
Yeah.
It was all animatronic. I did this.
You were like
the monkeys.
No, you were. It was like the pizza joint with the rat.
Chuck E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese.
The rat group.
Have you seen the new Chuck E. Cheese? Looks like a rat, dude. He's not a mouse anymore. It's like a nasty rat. Anyway, yeah. So we integrate all of that at our live shows, and we've done I think 5 or 6 live shows. We did Nashville live audience. That was a lot of fun. We did Orlando, Austin, L.A., Florida. Yeah, well, Orlando's in Florida.
So any like juicy? See, I remember one of my favorite things when we talked about earlier is like debates. Are you still debating?
Oh man, we just did a huge Muslim debate. My biggest Islamic opponent was like 5 days ago.
Okay.
It was wild. Yeah. So, that was my 5th or 6th Muslim debate.
So by debate, just I know this is
Formal
going to sound.
debate.
I know this is going to sound. I know, and I need to explain this. What that means is it's not just two people yelling at each other. It's structured. Somewhat
with the Muslims, it sometimes is.
Well, you know what
Yeah,
I mean.
know
But
what you mean.
it's a structured.
I'm
You
just making a joke,
you
yeah.
have an allotment of time. They have an allotment of time. Usually, there's a moderator.
Right.
There's a topic at hand.
Right. So formal debate, you have a thesis,
Right.
pro con.
Right.
You have like 15-minute opening statements. You have rebuttals. You have cross-examination.
Right.
And then more statements and then closing stuff. Right.
Right,
So
right.
that's the typical with a moderator. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, there's a formal debate.
How do you get set up with something like this? Like, what is your criteria? I mean, obviously, this is something you're doing for a living. So, I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but I'm just going to make assumptions. You got to have large viewership. You've got to have probably some sort of. They've got to have cut their teeth. I'm sure you don't want someone that's just going to be like, I feel this is the
Right.
best. I feel Donald Trump's the bestest. I feel that way.
Yeah, you
What do you
eventually.
think?
Yeah, you want to have some criteria
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Like, it can't just be any rando. It's
Yeah.
got to be a person who is notable for that position, right?
Yeah.
So it started, I think, with just kind of a mid-tier Islamic apologist guy who was interested in orthodoxy just to understand it, and he happened to be connected to a lot of the larger Islamic YouTube debaters. So that led to the next 2 Islamic debates, with Dr. Shabir Ali and then with a sheikh.
Gotcha.
That's in Islam.
Sheikh.
That's more respect. That's like a higher level. It's
Gotcha.
like if you're a sheikh, you're kind of.
Gotcha.
It's kind of like a THD. You know, you're respected.
So, and for our listeners too, Orthodoxy is one of 3 branches, types of Christianity. It is the 2nd largest church in the world. In the southern United States, it's not as well known, but it is the one of, if not the most ancient Christian church in the world.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
anyways, when you say Orthodoxy, a lot of people think
Yeah.
Orthodox Jews or
No.
something like that.
Orthodox
So-
Christianity.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Orthodox
So-
Christianity.
So, when I'm debating the Muslims, I represent that position, obviously.
Right.
But it's also a much better approach because of the specificity that Orthodoxy has about the Trinity that's not usually there in Roman Catholic and Protestant argumentation. Not to say that there aren't Protestants, Roman Catholics that aren't sophisticated on the Trinity, but Orthodoxy really is very super precise on the Trinity.
So specifically, what part
and
of
that's
the
much
Trinitarian
better.
argument is that you? What do you think that you pull from Orthodoxy? I'm just curious that you would use in against a Muslim.
It's better against a Muslim because a lot of the text that Muslims are going to use from the Old Testament or from the Gospels is going to assume their Unitarianism. And what we usually do that's really effective is showing that the Old Testament teaches the Trinity, that Judaism isn't a monolithic Unitarian thing. In fact, a lot of modern Jewish scholars are admitting that looks like early Christianity is actually a conservative form of Judaism because it's sticking to the authenticity of the Old Testament texts, which posit a triad. So the triads all throughout the law and the prophets. So you have Yahweh, the angel of the Lord, who comes in so many of those what are called theophanies or divine manifestations, and then you have the Spirit. So essentially, the Orthodox view is that no, it's not that Abraham was a strict Unitarian. No, Abraham was a Trinitarian, even though he didn't use the term. He still recognized these three personae in God, and so that's becoming more admitted.
So when Jacob wrestled with God, he was wrestling with JC, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So JC whooped up on him, came off the top rail, and came down and popped that.
He touched that thunder.
Hip.
He touched that thunder thigh.
Boom.
Yep.
I got you. And so the Shekinah glory.
Holy Spirit, yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So you see this triad all throughout, and even specifically like where.
So when the prophets speak, we're
like
talking
Zechariah 1-3, you have Father, you have the angel of the Lord, and then you have the Spirit, all right there. Ezekiel 1-10, same thing.
Yep.
So Trinity is everywhere in the Old Testament, and that's very effective against Islamic apologetics.
I thought Ezekiel 1-10 was talking about aliens.
Well, if you watch the History Channel, it is. Yeah, right.
I thought it. Pretty sure it's aliens. So I'm a Christian.
Also, by the way, alien psyop, big promoter of that, Lawrence Rockefeller.
Yep.
Huge promoter of that.
What I was going to say is I'm a Christian 1 hour out of the week, and then the rest of the week I'm a strict material atheist. So I only accept what the public zeitgeist forces down my throat.
So you believe in aliens?
Yeah. So I only believe in them now because the government told me.
Right.
Yeah, they said it was aliens, and it's funny the verbiage that they use because really, all honesty, and I don't know whether you've talked about this, and I'm sure you have. It sounds like they're describing other spirits. I mean, they're talking about like biologics and things like this. I mean, like, biologics have been found. Well, I mean, you think about like Moses's face, right? Like it was affected by the presence of, right? So like it left a had some sort of biological mechanism that it changed his face briefly because it was interacting with this thing. It just would make more sense to me that it would be, in my mind, another spirit rather than a mechanical thing that somehow built another mechanical thing and transcended this immense space of time for millions of years just to crash.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you go to the history of the origins of this whole mythology, it's bound up with a lot of known frauds. If you look at Betty and Barney Hill, George Adamski, those are some of the earliest abduction stories. In the case of George Adamski, his story was basically cribbed from a crappy sci-fi novel, and he got found out. People started calling him a fraud, and guess who ran point to shut down any investigations of him? Alan Dulles, believe it or not. So
Alan Dulles.
Yeah. So the CIA has been absolutely, from the earliest days, involved heavily in the UFO phenomenon. Did a really good interview with some dudes that are kind of experts on this, the Collins brothers. They wrote like a 700-800 page book on this topic called Invoking the Beyond. If anybody wants to read something really good on this.
That's what they're doing with the Large Hadron Collider, I believe.
I don't know what that is. But
Dude, listen. Just think of it. You're objective and logical, right?
Try to be.
Okay.
Hence, I'm on this podcast, Lodgical.
Yeah.
Right? Is it up here?
Drink your
I was looking for the name of the podcast.
Real quick, can we take a commercial break? That's fine. My mom does. That's
I'm just joking.
I'm not. Though. I'm not.
Hi, Miss Lodge.
Yeah, I'm not joking. Audience. You are. I'm not. So, anyway, what I was going to say is, I just find it fascinating when it's almost as if like in the material atheist world, like it's going to sound so great, like. Their God, their Jesus Christ has just like incarnated.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Do you understand?
No, it's like, so a lot of the new atheists are very open to and even promote the idea of aliens, right?
Yeah.
Dawkins.
Well, I do believe in the possibility of aliens
Is he
seeding
still
us.
alive?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, nice.
Of course he's still alive.
How? Adrenochrome? How's that work? Taco Bell? I don't know.
Well, and then Michael Shermer the other day was just saying to the question of, well, how does something come from nothing if you believe in a complete, materialistic account of the Big Bang and all that?
Well,
so hold on. So now they're appealing to mystical metaphysics of quantum foam.
Right.
So, quantum foam, right? And so aliens and quantum foam are basically the new metaphysics,
right,
for the atheist materialist,
right. But in materialist defense, classically they've always believed the universe has no beginning or end. That was their premise forever and a day. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until the Big Bang that was changed. So the classic materialist said no, the the universe
is eternal.
Is eternal. Right. Yeah. But what I was going to say, anyways, cap note, real quick, back on the Large Hadron Collider and your logical thing about this. It's the largest thing we've ever built in all of humanity. Okay? It's the most expensive thing we've ever built in all of humanity. And you're going to tell me that we built this thing just to run protons into each other?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't make any
I think it is
sense.
for something else. I just don't know what.
I don't either. But if you look at you wrote a book called Esoteric Hollywood. Look at all the esoteric symbology that's surrounding the Large Hadron Collider, their website, all of the symbolism that they put through the play. It's weird. Yeah. I'm like, what are y'all doing down there? You're not just, we want to find out the origins of the universe. No, human beings don't spend that much time, that much money, build this big of a structure to run atoms into each other.
Usually that kind of stuff is built for surveillance and control.
Yeah, war, death.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Probably
surveillance and control.
Yeah, right.
They fall hand in hand.
Like I think a lot of the Cold War architecture of what was put into place with like SETI and those giant, good example is those giant dishes that were supposedly to send emails to alien life, SETI.
Oh yeah, dude.
I actually think that was part of just Cold War, like they were using that for surveillance.
Was that Contact? Didn't they use SETI?
It's in Contact.
Okay,
yeah. It's in a lot of movies.
Yeah, Matthew McConaughey is the dreamiest preacher I've ever met.
Thank you, I appreciate that. you got a dreamy little beard there. It's all right.
Jodie Foster does not like him though. I can tell you that much.
Well, if you remember that movie, it's funny because he's actually the spiritual counselor to the president. So the president's like a Bill Clinton kind of guy.
He rode like a motorcycle or something.
And Matthew McConaughey, he's the spiritual counselor, right?
Yeah.
He's like, President Bill, you need to listen to me, baby. I'm gonna tell you what to do.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah,
it's a terrible movie.
Yeah,
if you go watch it, like because it's Carl Sagan propaganda, but it does have some interesting stuff in it.
But I know, but who's the dad? Man, he was such a good dad. I can't think of the Bill Pittman or Pullman. Bill Pullman.
Arthur Lodge.
Arthur Lodge. Yes. He's not watching.
It may be Bill Pullman in that.
Or one of the, I forget, but I watched Enemy of the State the other day, 1999.
Guess who's in that?
Who?
Brief first early movie.
John Voight.
No, Jamie Kennedy.
He is in that.
He is one of the tech nerds.
Yes, with him and Seth Green and and Jack Black and
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, Enemy of the State's great.
Yeah,
it's
but
great
I mean, so we watched it. And we were laughing at all the, like the way they project like how technology is going to develop or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, when do you think this movie was made? And we're trying to guess. Obviously post 9/11. Obviously, it's talking about NSA. It's talking about but I mean, in my mind, it was like obvious. It's so obvious.
Right.
Because it's like the control state. And I mean,
the senator at the beginning is like, I don't want to pass this legislation that's going to take away everybody's civil liberties.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you're going to pass it. Yeah. Right. And you get
civil liberties.
Yeah. Right. And of course, post 9/11, that's exactly what everybody lost. But, and speaking of Jamie Kennedy, we filmed a podcast with him.
Is Jamie Kennedy here? You keep looking over there. I don't want to look over there. Is he here?
I just keep looking up at the camera because we're on a podcast. And so the audience, exactly. That's not Jamie Kennedy.
Can we cut to commercial break real quick?
Are you serious? How many times do you promote this guy, this insurance con man or whatever?
How do you make your money? I'm being honest. How do you make your money? I'm not trying to be condescending. How do you make your money?
Gold. I sell gold doubloons on.
No, how do you make your money?
On the dark web, the black web.
Commercials? Promote. I mean, seriously, don't people have to promote? Can we run to the commercial?
I just didn't know you.
Sorry.
I'm just having fun.
No, I have to make money, just like you.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with this world of podcasting.
It's rough, dude. It's rough. My 400 listeners.
Well, no telling what this. How's that? Was that tightwad pay anything?
A lot. Keeps this place up and running.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot. I mean, that's why I have them so much.
Well, when you go into Jamie Kennedy's condo is where he films his podcast, and what's funny is like it's like a Hollywood version of Cracker Barrel. Every inch of the wall is like movie memorabilia in every room. It was crazy. Like you go in the bathroom, every inch of the wall is like Jamie Kennedy stuff because he was actually in tons of movies. Right?
Yeah.
It was just it made me think of that because I'm in here in this podcast room. There's like,
have you seen the movie Funny People with Adam Sandler when he's like a dying comedian and he has like Seth Rogen and he hires Seth Rogen to like write jokes for him or whatever? It's the same premise. You go to his house and his house is like decorated with all of his stuff from like his when he was
but
in
like
Hollywood.
every inch.
Yeah,
like you go in the kitchen, it's like
dude, all of my 4-H ribbons, all of my speech team
Your house
trophies,
is 4-H ribbons.
my whole house. Yeah, my kids bring home stuff and I'm like, gotta be first. Gotta be first, bum. Yeah.
So. It wasn't that Jamie was there. Wasn't it that way? It was like a Hollywood Cracker Barrel, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, but he was in Enemy of the State. I forgot about that until recently.
Yeah.
So.
Wild movie. I mean, just like again, it's that predictive. Yeah, predictive programming nonsense. I don't. We try not to. There's not too many movies that grab us these days. I tend to feel like, and I know you know this to be the case, but there's a huge shift that's taking place right now in cinema, and I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's Operation Freedom was great.
Yeah.
Or Sound of Freedom, excuse me.
Sound of Freedom. Yeah. So what's going on with that? I heard one of the dudes that was like a crowdfunder producer got picked up, and the big for child trafficking, and
no, that was
everyone's hating on.
No. So
this
they had hundreds of people that could donate.
Yeah,
and so one dude had donated, and he got caught but I mean, anybody could donate that.
Yeah. Why are they hating on this movie so much?
I think because it's legit, in my view.
Because it's talking about child trafficking.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, there's
which
more
the media says doesn't exist.
Right.
Even as Oprah's spiritual counselor, John of God, was just convicted and given a 100-year sentence for human trafficking.
Yeah. So those of you who don't know, there's more slaves in the world than there's ever been in all of human history by both population and percentage. That's a fun, real fact. And we live in a world and in a society where we act as if that's not the case. But that is 100% factual. CIA fact book, actually.
And there's a bunch of books that have come out over the years about this stuff. I mean, my publisher did Franklin Scandal, Franklin Cover Up. That book came out in it's about the events in the early 80s of boy trafficking.
The best thing, and I don't mean this as a joke, and it's going to sound funny, but follow me down this philosophical rabbit hole. The best thing to happen to slavery, historically speaking, is the Civil War. Because technically, if you think about it, in our public zeitgeist, it ended. It ended slavery. Slavery ended, right, at that date. But really, just like some of these other systems that we talked about earlier.
Different kind of slavery.
It's a different kind of slavery. Yeah, and they got better at it.
Right. More sophisticated.
More sophisticated. Yeah. They got better at it. And they tried early on, we could see early examples of like the early robber barons with the company store. And that kind of sticks out in our mind.
Pinkerton Security.
Right. Yeah. But we're not enslaved. Me, Jonathan Lodge, in 2023, I'm the exemption to this rule. Just like the algorithm's not influencing my own preferences and brain, I'm exempt from that.
Right.
Just like I support the political person that I support because of my own free will, not because I've been imprinted by whoever, right? No, nonsense, right? That's nonsense.
Yeah, it's like we're all slaves in it's like a gradation scale.
That's right.
And we may not be like on a plantation, but if we're on the Disney plantation, like if we're programmed by Disney, right?
Yeah.
Like if our kids are raised on Disney.
Right. Yeah. Well, and also too, we live in Western society, we tend to put things in this weird, like it's either this or it's that, black or white, these dichotomies or whatever you want to call it. And we tend to like look at things as if they're worse. We tend to like have a scale of, this is inherently worse or inherently better. And, chattel slavery, obviously terrible, horrible. But any experience that you have can be terrible and horrible. And how is it that we're going to grade these things. And I think that if it's a slow, easier, methodical, it tends to be less abrasive, and we tend to say, "Oh, that didn't hurt so bad.
Exactly.
That wasn't so bad."
Yeah, slow kill Fabian model. Exactly.
Yeah.
The Fabian symbol is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Their other symbol is a turtle because it's a slow kill.
Interesting. So what are we supposed to do in 2023, man?
You start a podcast. Have you ever heard of podcasting?
No. No, I mean, like, our generation, we were handed a shit bag. We were raised to believe we could do anything we want. The world was our oyster. We this awesome, just this awesome ideas of limitless, bounty, and then we can't escape debt. We can't hardly buy housing.
Yeah, why is debt slavery not considered slavery?
Yeah.
I mean, we know this term from history, debt slaves, right?
Right.
If you owed a lot of money, you would go to debt or prison. You might have to work it off, right? But if the whole money system is based around fiat usury, how is that not everybody enslaved? It's theft from future generations as well, too, by the way. Right?
Oh, yeah, that happened in the last 2 years. The
inflation is like, what, 10% after COOF?
Right.
So that's
the largest upward mobility transfer of wealth.
Oh, you're talking about just the transfer of wealth.
Just the transfer of wealth from the boomers to...
Right. The devaluation of the currency just from COOF is 10%.
That's right.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yep. It is crazy. It is crazy. And it's
which is theft.
Which is theft. And it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And... that's the struggle that my generation and I don't want to speak for my entire generation, but we just see this and we see it on fire and we're just like, golly, this is horrible. I don't want to be a part of the system. And it's like, I don't want to vote for Biden. I don't want to vote for Trump. I don't want to do any of these. I don't want to give credence to any of these institutions because they're obviously false. They've obviously let us down. Legacy media, whatever it is, right? We're outright rejecting it. But our problem is we don't know what to fill with that void. And so you speak of Carl Sagan. It's one of my favorite quotes is, we filled it with, clutching crystals and nonsense. We filled it with, we've rejected material atheism, but what we have filled in its void is...
Dumb New Age stuff.
New Age stuff, yeah. Anything but,
like crystals and that kind of junk. That's like the number one thing on TikTok. It's like they're all witches and in the crystals.
Yeah,
like it gets like 1 million likes on TikTok.
And what's crazy is, what group hates those people worse than anybody else? Evangelical Protestant Christians, right? They hate witches. Remember, like, the whole satanic ritual abuse and all that, right? That they were like public enemy number one. It's like Satanists, right?
Sure.
Right? They hate each other.
Right.
Now, who would the New Age blame all of their trauma and all of this, regression from their parents? They hate who?
Evangelicals.
The evangelicals, right? But they both believe and work off the same model and same system, which is God, or the Godiverse, is Santa Claus. Hey, man, we can do X, Y, Z. We can line everything up and we can manifest this, or we can pray to God that we'll have a Lamborghini Countach in our garage when we get home.
That's a great point.
And whatever the nonsense is. But it's like they are building off that same block.
It's the same theology.
It's the same theology.
Yeah, right.
And they hate each other. And to make that comparison to the 24-year-old girl who has daddy issues in sertraline or whatever.
Witch.
And to the 66-year-old Karen that wants to cut someone off in Kroger because she's entitled to, they're the same. You believe the same thing. You believe that you control the will of and power of the world.
Yeah.
That you can, with your faith, move mountains, whatever your faith is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is like God is a concept that is a technology that I can harness to better myself and get what I want. Which, by the way, I like Jordan Peterson says a lot of good things, but that's also his view of God ultimately, is basically that God is like this concept that's a self-help technology.
A verb.
Yeah.
An action, essentially.
Tate says the exact same thing, too, about God.
Yeah.
Which is funny because you would think that Tate and Peterson have different views, but they have the same view of God, that God is this technology that gets you what you want.
So, but if that technology is a means to the end, then wouldn't that end? I mean, isn't this sort of a self-refuting worldview? Wouldn't that end then become God? Right? If
Yeah.
right. If the technology,
God is the self-help thing that gets me. Right.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
God's what helps you do what you got to do to survive.
What does that mean?
Well, to flourish.
What does that mean?
Well, to do well.
Right. Okay.
Oh, no, yeah, we can't define any moral. No, absolutely not. How dare you start to make any kind of moral claims about anything? Yeah.
Well, both of those views, they just end up, like you said, the telos. The purpose of that is just Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I want to
A Lamborghini Countach.
I want to be successful and not an alcoholic. I want a house and a wife, not being alone in an apartment on drugs.
Right.
Right. So Jordan Peterson appeals to me so that I can get to a better status in life.
Right.
Not that that isn't a better status in life, but like you're saying, well, that's just making a different created thing of God.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I want Tesla to release periwinkle blue, and so I'm going to manifest that. So I've lined up my crystals and I've got my sages, and I'm going to manifest that Elon's going to release periwinkle blue.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I have that power.
Super gay, but all right.
Yeah, with just the right stuff. You know what I mean? With just the right stuff.
It's a technology. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a technology.
Yeah.
And I love this because I saw this the other day on Facebook, and I should have bought us both matching ones. But, the Bible is used as technology, right? And it's been used since, 500 years or so, let's say, roughly, as technology. And
Is that when you think the Bible came to be? 500 years ago? Jonathan.
it came to be...
Just joking.
No, hang on. I'll give you a date. Jesus died, rose from the dead, and he's like, boom.
And he wrote the KJV.
And he's like, boom. He
Here's the
handed it off,
KJV.
and he did this.
The KJV?
Yeah.
Okay.
He did that and disappeared. Yeah. So using that as technology, so we can look into this thing and we can decipher the text and we can connect the dots
Like
and everything.
Bible code?
Yeah. But that's what it all is like, hey, if you just read, I will give you a proposition, XYZ, and I'll be able to back it up with this connect the dots scripture, right? And that's why we have 40,000 different denominations or whatever. But when I was on Facebook the other day, this point was articulated by, so instead of like wearing a cross like most people would wear around their neck, right? You could buy a micro engraved, the entire Bible, nano engraved with like the laser etched. And it's like however many millimeters the text, but it's the entire text written on this silicon, like you would write a computer chip or something. And then it's in glassed and then enclosed with 24 karat gold. And it's this square, and it's all of the Bible written out.
Okay.
I know, but do you understand the what this is representing? So instead of a cross that you would wear, it's which is we worship Jesus Christ.
Right.
No, we're worshiping the technology.
Okay. The nanotech. Yeah.
Scripture, right? Scripture is the technology from which we come to understand God. And we use that scripture, we use that technology to defend our worldviews or whatever it is. So instead of keeping God close to our hearts, we keep scripture close to our heart.
Well, what did Jesus say to the Pharisees? You search the scriptures because you think that is in them that you have eternal life, when it is they that bear witness of me.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Daniel. That was a good one. He bore witness to Jesus. You remember him?
That's the name I took in chrismation. So yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah.
That's cool. Man, I won't take up any more of your time. I've enjoyed.
Great chat, man.
I've enjoyed all of this. Can we real quick? Please don't get mad. Did you? Okay.
There is a camera there, right?
I don't know.
It's funny, like this whole time, that's not actually a camera. It's just a thing up there, and I've been talking to the wall.
Dude, anytime you want to come back on here and talk, and I look forward to, real quick, let's plug your book, because we didn't get to do that, man.
Yeah, well, this is the new book. This is when we do the live events, we're pushing this book. So,
and I can get this.
This is for you. It's signed to J-Lo. Get it?
John Lodge.
Well, Jennifer Lopez.
Jennifer
J-Lo.
Lopez.
So I'm calling you Jennifer Lopez.
Okay, yeah, I get it now.
Got it.
Okay, got it.
So there we go.
So a signed copy, and this is Meta-Narratives, Essays on Philosophy and Symbolism, and I can find this on Amazon.
Please don't get it from Jeff Bezos. Go to my website,
Okay.
jasonanalysis.com, and in the shop, you get the signed copies of all of my books, previous books, the Hollywood books, also my wife Jamie's books.
Oh, cool.
And then we don't give Jeff Bezos money.
You don't give Jeff Bezos money, and you get an actual signed copy. And I got to say, so Esoteric Hollywood was your first major book that you published, and it was amazing. And then I haven't read the entire thing, but last time I saw you gave me a copy of your Red Book.
The Red Book, yeah, that's just
Yeah.
kind of like a homemade thing that somebody did. I didn't even do it. They just stuck all the essays that I wrote over the last 10 years into a book.
Yeah.
So you can get that one there. Yeah, there's also Esoteric Hollywood 2, which
Nice.
in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
view
yeah.
is a better written book than Esoteric Hollywood 1.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, so you can get all those. I'm working on Esoteric Hollywood 3. Working on another book I want to do on like geopolitics and global elite books, that kind of stuff. So hopefully I have some new books out in the coming year.
So real quick, jaysanalysis.com, and you can subscribe, you can buy your merch.
Books, all that,
Books.
yeah, archives. You can also find me on Rockfin, YouTube, Twitter. Twitter's been a big boost in the last year. So, I mean, that's growing faster than all the other things for me. So
Sweet.
I'm very active on Twitter. Oh, yeah, and then big shows. I'm doing a podcast with the most famous living gangster, Sammy the Bull Gravano.
No way.
We're on our 7th podcast. So,
Dude, that's cool. You and Sammy the Bull, you're on your 7th podcast.
yeah, he's the guy that basically took down John Gotti and the whole syndicate there.
It's so funny you talk about my dad, but when we would go and see my uncle, we would always drive by Marion Penitentiary, and Dad would say, "Wave at John Gotti." I'm not kidding. Yeah.
That's funny.
My uncle, on the
well,
way there,
Sammy
yeah.
has a funny story that, like, because he was stationed, he was sentenced to the ADX Supermax.
Oh yeah, in Florence.
Where Epstein was, not at the same time, but
Okay.
So he's like, "There's no way they won't let you have nothing. No way he killed himself. You
Oh,
can't
okay.
even have a towel."
Yeah. Now Epstein, who's this? I'm just kidding.
Professor.
Whatever happened to that?
A math professor.
Why do we? Well,
He's just a math professor.
Drink
dude.
your boomer fuel and get mad at Bud Light and get mad at Dylan Mulvaney and all this stupid stuff. And let's forget about Jeffrey Epstein taking world leaders and CEOs and freaking Hollywood elitists to a island with little children. Let's all just forget about that and move on and get mad at Jason Aldean. And guys, they did try that in your town. I just have to let you know, they tried it, they did it, and they won. This has been the Lodgical Podcast. Special guest, Jay Dyer.
Thank you.
Tune
A lot
in
of
next
fun.
week, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Actually, this is one of the funnest podcasts.